Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Be Fun Technology. Their mission, your vision, our solution. You'll get a team of dedicated professionals who care about your vision. Be Fun Technology provides organizations of all sizes with the best, most trustworthy IT solutions in this ever-evolving technology market.
Good day, listeners. It's your man, Dame DNYDC, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. We're back today with another amazing guest, actually here in our own backyard here in the DMV. We have a man who has done and doing so much. I'm proud to be able to have him join us today. I'm proud to be in his presence. We've met really once officially, but twice kind of offshot of a few other events in the community. But this man is an inspiration. And, Lisa, your history with this gentleman goes back a little further than mine. And I know you feel like I do. So, you want to share a few words before we allow this king to introduce himself to our listeners?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, listeners. Hey, bruh. I hope all is well with everyone. I am ecstatic, excited for Carl Armstrong to be here. I've met this man at a couple of rallies, and then I listened to his show that he has, Carlsconversations, also Heart for the Community. We'll get into that later. And I mean, the topics that was popping off in this, I was in the comments like Medea. I was just typing. But I really got to know him and his heart, his spirit, his wife, Tisha Armstrong. They just really good, grounded, down to earth people. So I am really excited for this show. And I'm really excited for our relationship that we forged out of a hard time. We forged this relationship, came out of 2020 in the community and pushing and doing things. And it's just been a good fit. And I'm just so happy for that. So, I could go on and on. I love the Armstrong. So I'm go ahead, bro.
Well, look. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Carl Armstrong to our listeners. Carl, please give us an introduction of who you are and what you're about and what you're doing here in the DMV community.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you thank you to you, Damon, and to you, Alyssa, for inviting me to Two Mics Up. It is a signal honor to be a part of your show. I am a listener. I am a fan of the art and the science of your show. So for me to be here with you two, I feel like right before I came over here to my hotel room, my stepdad said, "Boy, you're getting popular, ain't you?" I said, if these two invited me, I guess I have. So thank you so much. It really is humbling to be here. For the audience, let me see, where do I start? I got to the region in 2012 through my job. I am a senior telecom engineer with one of the healthcare organizations in the region. I serve as assistant pastor at Spirit of Truth Deliverance Church in Dumfries, Virginia, where Apostle Larry G. Brown Sr. is the senior pastor. I am the director of operations for Heart for the Community Initiative, which is a nonprofit community-based organization. And we help the community through community events. And we do, so much through Heart for the Community. You really can't pigeonhole us when we're not hosting events for, ourselves, giving out food and school supplies and clothing and making sure people can get blood pressure and blood sugar checks and getting classes, free classes now, on resume writing, interviewing skills, all those types of things. I could go on and on. I'm also the host for the Heart for the Community interview series. Mm-hmm. That series came about 2020, like Alyssa was saying during the introduction, through hard times. And from that interview series, I spun off Carlsconversations, which is a place where we can get down at the root level and deal with some stuff that nonprofits may not want to deal with. All right. And also I serve in a organization called Enough. I'm so proud to be a part of this organization. I am the initiative leader for criminal justice reform. So those are a few things, and those are the things that are near and dear to my heart, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Well, we are absolutely loving you and the work that you're doing. You know, we have the pleasure here at Two Mics Up, like I said, of being affiliated with you, the Enough Group. We just had Gary Holland on, an excellent interview, and the work that he's doing with Enough and other things like yourself. We've had, Elisa and I, at different occasions, have had the pleasure of joining you on Carl's Conversations. Excellent show. And people, if you have not, we will allow Carl to share that information at the end, but it's definitely a must tune in. And with all of these hats and all of these things that you're doing in the community, Carl, like what inspires you? You know, what is that gives you that zhuzh that you want to go out here and do these things every day? And secondly, explain to us, how did that actually lead into, you know, Heart for the Community and for Carl's Conversations? You gave us a little bit, but I want to go a little bit deeper.
Okay. Well, what drives me is I love God. I love his people. And helping people comes second nature to me. I was always a kid in school who would go after the bully. When the bully was messing with people, I was a dude that wanted to know, you want to fight me? I remember years ago when I was on active duty in the Army, and my dad was looking at one of my evaluation reports. And that evaluation report said that Sergeant Armstrong consistently chooses the hard right over the easy wrong. And he said, son, this really is you. This has been you since you were a baby. You know, so some of these things, when you say what drives me, were innate. That they came with the package. I was born like that. I really do love God's people. For me, when I look for examples of behavior and what ought to be done, I always look at Christ. And when you look at his character throughout the New Testament, you see that wherever he went, he dealt with outcasts. You know, and he had a serious love and care for poor people without. Remember, he said that what you do for the least of these, you're done also unto me. I carry that. And I know what it feels like to be on the outside, right? And so I have a heart for people on the outside, people who have trouble making ends meet. So it comes very natural, and that's a fire that burns, that doesn't have to be rekindled. It just is. But to be honest with you, it took a long time for me to get here. I was sharing with Gary Holland, and you mentioned him. He was the guest last week. Gary Holland is a big brother to me. I respect him. I honor him. I look up to him. And every time Gary and I get together, I get another job and another title. Gary gets into a lot of stuff. Alyssa, you know that. But I thank God for him because of my fellowship with him. It has opened many doors. So when we got hit with the coronavirus in 2020 and all the restrictions started, I was like, oh man, what are we going to do with Heart for the Community? Because like so many other businesses and organizations, we had to rethink how we would reach our audience, the people that we serve. Because with the restrictions, you can't go out and go do a community event and have 300, 400, 500 people, in one place. So the idea came to start doing interviews, and that came from Gary Holland. I was trying to figure it. And so he said, you want to interview my wife? She owns Blessed Hands. And so that was the first interview. After that, I was just amazed at his production. I said, man, how do you do that? And he turned me on to StreamYard. And I just started messing with it. And after the second or third interview, I told Gary, I said, you know what, bro? I think I found my voice. For years, I knew there was something more I was supposed to be doing than preaching the word. And I'm not saying that is not fulfilling, because it is. It is a tremendous responsibility. And it's a great honor to be called of Christ to do this. But I always knew there was something else for me to do with my gifts. And when this opened up, it just, if anybody's ever played baseball, it's like when your bat makes contact with the ball, they call it the sweet spot. When you hit that sweet spot, you don't even feel it. And there's a certain sound. And usually, if you got a good swing and the ball hit the sweet spot, you can just watch it sail out of the park. I've hit my rhythm. And if you're a drummer, I'm playing in the pocket. So that's what this feels like to me. So we started with the Heart for the Community interview series. And like I was telling y'all before, I started dealing with some subject matter that I was thinking, man, this is probably better served somewhere else. I don't think this is the right venue for a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And remember, when I'm dealing with Heart for the Community initiative, I am not the president, and there are other directors, and there are people who are affected. And so I represent a lot of people when I'm doing Heart for the Community. So when I spun off Carl's Conversations, the motto there is Carl's Conversations is a safe place to have difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. We were dealing with so many difficult things. I mean, the thing that happened to Mr. Floyd up in Minneapolis in May, and then all of the things that were happening, after that. Black people finally had a voice that the rest of the nation and the rest of the world were willing to hear. Mm-hmm. And out of that came many, many very difficult conversations. A post on Facebook can't really deal completely like some of the things we handled on the show. No. So Carl's Conversations came about as another outlet to deal with some more sensitive issues. And it just blossomed. It is amazing. My wife, I have to mention her because, to be quite honest with you, without her, Carl's Conversations and Heart for the Community Initiative interview series is not what it is. She is not a person who likes the spotlight, but I do have enough sense to listen to her, right? Mm. And she has so many ideas. She hasn't been wrong yet. None of her ideas have been wrong at all yet.
Look, I'm just sitting here listening. I just got to turn to my right because I got an executive producer, vice president, wife. That everything you just said, I just had to turn, make sure she paying attention. Because I live the same thing every day, and you're 200% right. Without her and without my wonderful, co-host, I would not be. We would not be. This would not be. So I agree with you, and kudos to you and your wife, and kudos to her for staying on you because you are doing an excellent job in the community and everything that you're doing.
And Damon, I got to tell you something. You might not know this, but those two ladies that you work with, they allow you to think that you're in charge. I want you to know that now.
Oh, look. You ain't got to tell me, Carl. I've been down this road. We've been together almost 30 years. I learned a long time ago, I may be the man of the house, but I'm not the man of the house. I know how this works. And I like sleeping in my bed.
There you go.
Well, the good thing for you guys is that you have very good counterparts, right? That complement you so well. I have the opportunity to know both of you, you guys as wives, and you are blessed and highly favored, and you married up. You married well. Yeah. So
I would agree.
I would definitely agree to that.
I'm going to give y'all some credit.
Yeah, I would agree. I could have done a lot worse.
Hey, look, like I said, I'm thankful, and I did marry up, and and something that you said with Heart for the Community and the things that you're doing. You're working on or leading the Criminal Justice Initiative. And right. I really want to just take something, because that's something that, that's a piece of your entity that you're working on. And in today's time, like you said, George Floyd and all of these unfortunate deaths and basically, in my opinion, all our slaughter on the Black community.
Yes.
Can you talk about that Criminal Justice Initiative just a little bit? And what's that about? Because I think we may need to hear or know more about that, especially here in the DMV.
When you look at the criminal justice as a whole, mm-hmm. you have three major parts: courts, law enforcement, jails, and prisons. Those are your three major deals. Historically, institutionally, Black people have not had a fair shake when it comes to our interaction with the criminal justice system in those three major categories. We don't get a fair shake when it comes to our contact with law enforcement. We don't get a fair shake when it comes to sentencing, bail, parole, probation, when it comes to jails and prisons, and courts. The sentencing portion is courts. I could give you all kind of numbers. I've spent many hours researching these things. So what we're trying to do in Enough is bring, number one, awareness to the mistreatment. We can say we've been mistreated, but you have to quantify that, right? This is how. And then with awareness, we want to close the gap. We don't want to be just sitting in the corner pointing the finger, look at the white police, look at this system. The system doesn't work for us. Well, that's part of what we had to say because those things are true. Mm-hmm. But now what do we do about it, right? Already Enough has facilitated 2 different events with law enforcement working with the youth in the area. How do you behave when you get stopped? Enough as a whole works with, especially we have a pretty good relationship with Stafford County Sheriff's Department, especially during the summer when we were doing the protests and all that. We do know the sheriff. We know several of the high-ranking officials. We do know several of the officers. So forging good and healthy relationships with law enforcement is a great help. So that's where we are trying to bring awareness and then moving into a place where we are active and making things better. Just on this past Wednesday night, and I was not a part of it because I was doing so many other things, but thank God for Gary Holland. He headed this. There was a call dealing with the jails and the inmates there, their safety. A lot of people don't know this, but in jails and prisons all across our country, you have a lot of inmates who complain of not being safeguarded with COVID. I have a first cousin who is in prison in Maryland. He's a part of Maryland State Department of Corrections. And I know from him firsthand the conversation, this ain't secondhand, it's me talking to him. The staff has not really done a good job at segregating those who have COVID from those who do not. And the testing took forever. So, people can say, well, they did X, Y, and Z, throw them in jail and lock away the key. But you have to ask yourself, most of the people who get locked up are coming out. Do you want the person that's coming to your community to be rehabilitated truly and ready to be an active, positive part of society and the community? Or do you want a person who is a more hardened criminal when they get out than what they were when they went in? Because at the end of the day, they're going to eat. Right. Now, they can either eat the right way or they can bust you in your head and eat. We want to make sure that they eat the right way. Even when it comes in, and you can say this falls under, civic action or voting, but even, stripping forever a convicted felon from voting forever. Look at what happened in this last election. Mm-hmm. We were pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Hey, listen, if you guys are out, you need to petition your governor for your right to vote. Mm-hmm. The sad thing is, and I am not partisan. I'm independent. But some things you just can see it is not partisan. There's one party who you're going to have a pretty good chance of getting those rights restored. Mm-hmm. And there's one party that you're not, and that's a shame. So there are many things that we need to be talking about. What got us really upset and all up in arms was our interaction with law enforcement. Black folks have a hard way to go in our nation when it comes to interaction with law enforcement. Yeah. And I hope that anybody who listens to this who may not understand, please don't waste your time with a comment saying if you guys would stop committing crimes. How many incidents have we had where blacks were not committing crimes? Mm-hmm. If barbecuing in the park is a crime, right? Selling an 8-year-old girl selling water is a crime. Preach it. Walking in a neighborhood is a crime. Okay, and the Constitution gives us certain rights when it comes to our interaction with law enforcement. And you can see by what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. Okay. When BLM marched on Washington, Man, let me tell you something. It was National Guard everywhere.
Everywhere.
Those mostly white protesters, and you got to call them rioters. They weren't no protesters, they were rioters and thugs and criminals, just like the jokers call us. But it seems like nobody thought they would be, of harm. People told me, well, those weren't Trump people. Trump supporters don't behave like that.
Yeah, okay. All that was a white America looking at itself in the mirror, and they were comfortable with what they saw.
All I saw was MAGA hats and Trump flags and American flags. I didn't see anything that said
Antifa. Carl.
Look, they was comfortable.
Yeah.
They was comfortable. They knew what was going on. They opened up the gate for them.
I have a friend who told me that, and I said, "Well, bro, when we were telling y'all it was Antifa that was kicking up dust in the summertime with some of the BLM stuff, y'all didn't believe that. But you sure want us to believe that, So from what I understand, from now, this is the reports that I have heard. Can't tell you what you've heard. None of those people that they've caught have claimed to be Antifa or have been found to be Antifa.
Nope.
These were Boogaloo Boys and Proud Boys and the Q people, QAnon, all of who are devout Trump supporters. So once again, I'm not trying to be political, but it is what it is. So when you talk about criminal justice, I just talked for the last 10 minutes. It is such a wide range of things. And we want to be able to have an effect right here in this Stafford, Spotsylvania, Prince William County areas to help our citizens here. First of all, to be made aware, help them to get engaged. And now after we're engaged, we have to do things. We have to keep our politicians accountable, and we have to keep those persons who are in positions of authority and responsibility throughout the criminal justice system. We got to keep them accountable too.
That's very important. That's why I asked the question. I think we really need to build or work on building more initiatives and programs like this throughout pockets of the country. So we start understanding what questions, not even before we get to the question, what expectations are we putting down that we want in these dialogues or these conversations or agendas, and educate ourselves and build on these initiatives throughout the country. So that's the main reason why I asked the question.
Well, that is true. I mean, criminal justice is my baby. That's someplace that I live and I breathe, but it just gets so heavy because it's just so lopsided. But there's a lot of work to do there. But Carl, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Per se, what would you say is the most important thing that you've learned in life, and how have you used that knowledge in what you are, doing now in the community?
I wouldn't give a singular answer because there are several lessons that all are number one to me. First and foremost, what comes to my mind, I hope I don't get emotional. My maternal grandmother is the one who introduced all of us to Christ. And one thing that she always told us, treat people the way you want to be treated. That has carried me into places that I never thought I would get to. God has blessed me and given me favor with people, places, and things that I know I didn't deserve or earn, but he honored that I honored that. You treat people the way you want to be treated, even people who don't treat you right. And that takes a lot of maturity, natural and spiritual, to be able to do that, even people who mistreat you. That is a great, great lesson. Another lesson, the scripture says that God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that also shall he reap. God can see a black bug on a black rock in the middle of the darkest night. So knowing always that his eyes are upon us, specifically upon me, it makes me behave myself when the flesh Carl would really want to do some things that are not quite what you call Christian-like, Christ-like. But knowing that if I cover my head, my feet will show, and if I cover my feet, my head would show, cause me to behave correctly. And I would say another thing, when it comes to being a family man. Being a father and a husband, I like to use the 5 P's. You have to be the protector, the provider, the patriarch, the priest, and the prophet of your home. And I could get it. We can have a whole nother interview about lessons I've learned and the marital relationship, the relationship of father and daughter, father and son. Those are where the rubber really meets the road. Mm-hmm. And when your household is in harmony, when you are raising children the right way, they blossom and they become very integral portions of our society, of our community, and of our churches. And when we don't do it right, we have lost a whole generation. When crack came about, crack was able to have the negative influence in the Black community that it did, right, because there was already a decay. We had already fallen away. Mm-hmm. And so in our neighborhood, in my neighborhood that I come from was rough. But then nobody want to mess it up because my daddy was crazy.
I know that's right.
So when it comes to just some things to know about life, some real life lessons, I could go on and on, but those 3 right there really, really stick out. And I'm going to tell you something. These are 2 good things. Number one, when we're dealing with millennials and that younger generation, they can smell a phony
all day.
We really need to be transparent with them and honest with them. If you really want to deal with young people, they smell a phony. Unlike in generations past, when they wanted their preachers to be perfect, this generation will accept an imperfect preacher as long as he or she is transparent and has a degree of integrity. You know, that's really, 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 really. That's really big.
That's profound right there.
Yeah.
That's profound.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that millennials and Generation Z and those coming up, they have a whole different perspective of the world.
Yes.
So I think that it is important that we integrate with them, listen to them. They do things very differently than us, right? They think differently than us. Not to say that their thinking is wrong, but we have to be in a position to hone that thinking, to develop it, to grow it, and to be there and not like so much as our generations was a little bit silent. You know, we children were, to be seen and not heard. And, our opinion didn't really hold that much weight, or we had to, follow in the footsteps of what our parents and our hierarchy thought. We didn't have those freedoms. And I think that we should shed some of that, closed doorness and, that kind of thinking. We need to evolve because, man, these people are smart. Man, okay,
they monsters, man. They monsters. And you're right. We just gotta listen. We gotta learn how to listen and share our knowledge.
Yeah,
so that they can
want us to pour out.
Yeah,
they want us to, but they don't want us to be hypocrites.
Well, I think too. No. They don't want us to. I think one of the problems that I talked with a gentleman. I was on another show, and young gentleman, young king, this brother, 23, and we just talked about it. We, our generation has a way of talking down to them, and we're not talking with them or talking to them. We're not receiving what they're saying, and he said that's really the biggest problem. And I think our generation really has to, like Lisa, open up that door, peel back the layers, and be a sieve. Receive now, and give your knowledge based on what you're receiving. Not telling them how they should be doing this and that and the third, like we tend to do. I'm going to have to ask this then. So as a man of faith in your involvement in the church, where are our spiritual leaders? Like, where are they? Where have they gone? I mean, we don't see them like we did in the past.
Many are way more active than you think, but they may not be on social media shows like I am. And I want to make sure people understand something too. I am not a senior pastor, right? A senior pastor has a much different role than one of the associate pastors. I'm an associate, I'm an assistant, right? That senior pastor is the one who God has made the angel of that church. He or she has responsibility for the souls of those persons. And God hold them responsible for that. See, you got to know your sheep. Mm-hmm. One needs to be pet. One needs to be popped. One needs to be picked up and held. The other you can send way down the road. They're going to do what you tell them to do and come back. And so a lot of us really don't understand what some of these pastors are dealing with in their own flocks. And we have to be careful when we point a finger and say they are not. Many of them, and I tell this from my own experience, are way more heavily involved behind the scenes than you think. And then there's another dynamic. They're human. Mm-hmm. And so some of this threw a lot of them so far off of their rocker. I'll give you a prime example. I'm in a group that's all different races and all that. We're dealing with racial reconciliation in the church. And I know I wasn't angry. I was mad. I want to know where these white evangelical pastors are when you see all this blood in the street and it's obvious that we're not treated right, especially them suckers who pastor black folks. Then I could be transparent with y'all, right?
Right.
That's how I was thinking for real. Yeah. I wasn't angry. I was mad, right? And so working in this group, know what I learned? Some of them really didn't know. See, we assumed that they know. Mm-hmm. Some of them, when we opened up and shared, when I tell you it blew their wig off, they were like, oh my God. Because now you're not looking at TV and dealing with somebody that you don't know. Mm-hmm. Now you listen to somebody who you know, who you trust and who you love and know wouldn't lie to you. Okay. And I'm saying this has been my experience. Not only with the police, this has been my experience with you. Some of them had to really get themselves together. Same thing when it comes to some of our black and brown pastors. I have a little bit more freedom than some of the senior pastors. And to be honest with you, I'll say this, and I'm not taking a stab at any of the pastors. I'm a different kind of guy, because even if I was a senior pastor, unless I was constrained by the Holy Spirit, when it comes to stuff like this, I'm bold. I come from that type of family. I come from those type of people. I don't run from anything. And when it's time to stand up, I'm going to stand up, even if I stand by myself. There are some things worth dying over. Okay, and I'm ready.
And that's the really reason why I asked. Thank you, because I don't know, and this is just my personal opinion and my personal view, I don't see that conviction anymore from men and women of the cloth in the church and the black community anymore. And I know we live in a different time. We're also dealing with a pandemic, and reaching out to your constituents and your sheep and your flock of the church is different now. But even on that level, sometimes it feels, I can only say it how I see it. Like, we're going through the motions. We're doing this because we are a church, and this is what a church normally does on Sunday. But I don't see or feel it like I did when I was a child, where you felt it outside the church, outside the community. It was there. You knew who in the community was doing what initiatives were going on. Like, now it just feels like we're almost like zombie-like. And I appreciate you sharing that honesty, because you're the first person that I've, outside of my personal friend who is a pastor, gave me a very similar response as you did. And I found that few and far between.
Yeah. I'll tell you also.
I think that's one of the things that, sorry, Carl, I just want to say this really quickly. I think that's one of the things that Carl has, right? Sometimes you have it, right? And the relatability factor to people of all walks of life, all, different phases of your faith. You can kind of, when you are around Carl and Tisha or on the show, you hear the Lord, but you also hear something that is relatable, that is different. It is not a situation where you're being preached at or talked to. You're almost invited into the conversation, and it doesn't matter where you're at in your faith. It's where they meet you where you're at, but with today's situation and what's going on. And it's almost like, well, I feel the same way, but I'm not really an active Christian, so I don't know how to be. And it's just almost like Carl and Tisha and Gary. They have that draws the people like us in, and we get a little closer and a little closer because it feels like, okay, well, we're not being preached at, but we understand where you're coming from because we feel that anger. We feel the same anger, but then it's displaced. You don't know what to do with it or where to go. So that was a good point, Dane. Thank you for that. And thank you, Carl, for that, because
I will add this
personally.
I will add this. Just remember, all preachers have a call and a gifting and certain talents, right? Some would be out of place dealing with racial justice, social justice, criminal justice. That they would be out of place, and you don't want a person out of place. I have been called to the castaways. I've been called to those people who are not part of the mainstream. You understand what I mean? So issues like this, God has called me to that. So I'm doing what I've been called to do. And I don't make it my business to get in God's business or other folks' business about what they've been called to do. You understand?
Well,
so very good.
Well said. That right now, you've got my mind stoked for another episode. We're gonna have to get some pastors on here because I want to chop it up. I got some questions. We'll leave that for another episode.
So with all the recent turmoil, the unrest in the USA, and what, in your opinion, how can the Black community evolve and move forward under the Biden-Harris administration?
This may sound odd, but this is where I am with it. We will have to lead, and we will have to forgive. We're not going to be able to lead until we forgive. You see, we have to get to the point where it's not about finger pointing anymore. We already know what the problem is. We already know where the problem is. But now we have to deal with those who are ready and willing. In the 9th chapter of Acts, that was the Damascus Road experience with Paul, right? Saul was a devout Jew who was persecuting Christians, right? Those who believed in Christ. Christ confronted him, knocked him off of his horse, blinded him, and called him into service. His buddies walked him into the town, to a place called Straight Street, to an inn. God called on a prophet to go lay hands on him and pray for him. And when he called the man said, Jesus, you're talking about Saul? Saul who persecute those who call on your name? You want me to go lay hands? Kill him. You go lay hands. There's a lot in there. We have to be like the brother who Jesus called. We have to go now lay hands on those who persecuted us, those who mistreated us, those who are ready and willing now. I'm not talking about those who are still trying to slay you. Many of them over this last year, seeing what happened with Mr. Floyd, and then that opening a portal for them to begin to study what Blacks have been through in this country. And now you see what happened on January 6th when people are fed lies and they believe it. Some of them are so hurt, so disappointed, and so lost, they're going to be coming to us. And we can't be standoffish. We can't tell them it's not my job to do such and such and such. You go, no. We're going to have to forgive, just like the brother did. And let me tell you what that brother did. When he went and laid his hands on Saul, he called him brother. He had to get over the fact that just the day before, Saul was trying to kill him. Jesus told him, I've called him into service, so you go do what I told you to do. That's where Black people are, who are willing. Some will and some won't. But for those of us who are willing, we're going to have to put our big boy and big girl drawers on, forgive, and then go do what God has called us to do. Go be part of the salve to love on them and teach them, give them fellowship and friendship, learn them. That's a great lesson I'm learning in Undivided, the group dealing with racial reconciliation in the church. It's easy to call a person a name when they're just a person who you don't know. But then after a foot washing service, when you just wash the feet of a stranger just washed your feet and their tears are hitting your feet, they're no longer a stranger. And so we're gonna have to get over our anger. Some of us, like me, gonna have to do it with anger. But I got to put aside Carl's anger and deal with God's forgiveness.
So what do you say to people who just feel, that they're untrusting because you've been down this road of reconciliation and not much has moved and it's still, the needle is not moved much. So what do you say to people that are weary and feel, like they don't trust enough to be forgiving because it just it feels like the same old thing, or that we forgive now and then we get the knife in our back later. So what do you say to people who struggles with that portion of it, of forgiveness? Yeah, I mean, it's a true, honest question because
yes, of course,
you're weary. You're looking at a side.
I have an answer. Mm-hmm. The answer is trust God. See, when you raise your hand to serve God, it's really not about what others do. God will send you to serve somebody who's trying to kill you. You understand what I mean? And so it takes a certain amount of maturity. So the question is, do you want to be at a level of maturity where you can just obey God and trust God? Because when God is leading me to do something, I had to grow to the point where I'm not looking for adoration or gratitude from those who I help. Let me tell you something. If you do work in the community, feeding and clothing, sometimes they can be the most ungrateful folks in the world. I had a woman, this is no joke. This was last year, 2019, I think it was. We had an event. Part of the event was giving away clothing and school supplies. She got all the supplies she needed she had 2 girls and a boy. She told me, well, I got everything for my girls, but y'all don't have nothing out here for those 6-year-old boys. I looked at her and said, well, mother, you got for your girls everything that they needed at no cost. And now you only have to deal with the cost of your boy. God is good, ain't he? I said it with a smile on my face, but to be quite honest with you, that really was not how I was feeling. I was incensed. But my job was not to be the captain of her emotions. My job was to go serve. And that's what I did. She would have to answer to God for how she behaved. I will have to answer for God for how I behaved.
Well said on that one. And I get and I see the point of some of the things I do agree and I don't agree, but I do agree mostly with the fact that still means I still have some growing to do. No, I know all of us do, but I'm just being honest.
All of us do.
If we're going to really talk about it, like that just means for me, I know what my shortcomings are, and I still need to grow towards those to hopefully do better. Because right now I'm in the boat of, man, look, I'm tired of sitting, waiting and being apologetic. And man, I already know the outcome. That's how I feel. But I know I do have to find a way to continue to serve, as you said, and keep continuing to do what I do. But I'm just speaking, that's my humanity speaking right now. That's just how Dane feels right now.
Well, listen, I have to stay in prayer because sometimes the slapping and cussing spirit wants to take me over too. But now I'm just being transparent, right? So don't think that I too don't have growing to do, right? If it were not for the Lord, y'all can finish that whatever way you're supposed to.
That's real talk. That's real talk. I know. I'll tell you.
I'll be the pistol with the whole bunch of
man.
Well, and it's true. I mean, that's just common. I mean, I guess that's just of the flesh. That's just how it is, right? But not all Black people are Christians. Not all of our Black community are, that way. Some are of the other religion and none at all. So it's just, I don't know. I just always feel like, how can we bridge those gaps, right? Between believers, non-believers, or people of other faith, because it is, the United States almost divides us up. Like, if you're not Christian, and then the Black community, I feel, does the same thing, because if you're not Christian, then, this is not. But how do we bridge those gaps to move forward as one, Well,
here's another thing, and we're doing a great job of it here. While we are working with our non-Black brothers and sisters who want to work with us, we also have to support each other. I am pro-Black, and I am also not anti-white, anti-Asian, anti-Latino. You understand what I'm saying? We need help.
Right.
We need help. And so I'm all the way with it. My wife and I do our best to support Black businesses. That's a great way for us to have a seat at the table. We keep our Black businesses thriving and growing. We put those business owners in great places of success, not only in the business world, but in the community. When you got a successful business, you have a voice. And when you got a voice, you got a seat at the table. Now, I'm not saying that my answer is the answer.
No, it's a valid answer. It's one that we need to hear and needs to be heard. Yeah, it was a great answer. It needs to be heard. As we're running it towards the end of this amazing conversation, because we can obviously keep going on and on. I do have one other question, and it's really a personal thing that I like to ask sometimes to our guests. So, if there was one thing that Carl could do to improve Black America, what would that be?
To make an impression upon, and I would have to start with the younger generation, but all need to be a part of it. Two major things. Number one, brothers and sisters, respect your woman, respect your man, raise our children the right way. The Black family has been torn asunder. We need to have intact families. That is very important for raising well-balanced and healthy children, not just physically healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually healthy, psychologically, financially healthy. And to go hand in hand with, being the right kind of family, to really, really impress upon people how important education is. Not just the college degree, that's part of it, but a continual attitude of intellectual curiosity. Years ago, it was said, if you want to hide anything from an N-word, you put it in a book. We have to have some intellectual curiosity, and that has to be bred into our children. Read, study. Stop asking folks questions and go find the answer, the real answer, and then apply it to your life. So to me, the unity of the family and getting out of ignorance through education. Some of what we see now is because of ignorance.
Well, Carl, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to sit down and just really chop it up with us, man. Your honesty, your transparency is great. Anything you care to share, go ahead and make this turn and exit on out of today's wonderful show.
Hey, listen, I would love for your audience to be our audience too, and I would love for my audience to be part of your audience. As you know, I always pump y'all stuff. They can find me on Facebook at Carl's Conversations, all one word, Carl's Conversations, no apostrophes, no nothing, all one word, Carl with a C, Carl's Conversations on Facebook and on YouTube. YouTube Carl's Conversations. And Heart for the Community Initiative, you can find me there on Facebook. We're gonna stretch out to Instagram and YouTube and all that good stuff on Heart for the Community. We'll do it. And for those of you who want to just find me, Carl Armstrong, you can hit me up on Facebook. I'll be your friend.
Well, I truly thank you. Thank you, Carl, so much for being on the show. It's just a blessing to hear your perspectives and your innovation. And I just love that you're so transparent and even in your feelings, that we all feel that so comfortable talking to you. At least I may be a little biased, because, and people. And if you guys are out there listening, yes, please check out Carl's Conversation. Mm-hmm. I think that Carl's Conversation is very in tune with Two Mics Up on the kind of same level. Carl gets deep. He doesn't have preempted questions. That show can go any way that it's going to go, that it's going to be. And we have had... We have had some good conversations, just healing and, working through, as we are here on Two Mics Up, just working through and healing the Black community and just moving forward, because we know the problem, but how do we heal? How do we move on? How do we collectively go as a group? So I think that our audience would definitely enjoy Carl's Conversation and Heart for the Community. So I'm just happy to have you, Carl.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. Thank y'all so much.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. And, I want our listeners and especially people of color to understand this is what supporting Black businesses, this is what supporting Black in the community looks like, sounds like, and we should be striving toward doing on a daily basis. So listeners, definitely, if you have the opportunity, check Carl out, Carl's Conversations. If you are here in the DMV, if you're in the Stafford, Spotsy, Prince William area, if you haven't checked him out or you haven't checked out Heart for the Community, crawl from under your rock or stop playing games on your phone and tune in, to Carl, tune in to Two Mics Up. And, I'm just proud to have had the time to have this conversation with you today, Carl. So like we always do.
Sister. Yes, hey, I love y'all. Thank you so much.
We love you too. You always got a home here. And like we always do, you can follow Two Mics Up online at www.twomicsup.com. You can follow us on social media, IG, Facebook, and Twitter at Two Mics Up. And as we always say, as we close out, stay safe, stay blessed, Mics out.